very much. Thank you very much. Let me recognize the distinguished persons here assembled, all of you, the faculty, the principal, the graduating class, parents, and friends. For me, it is indeed a special honor to be here this morning to attend and address the commencement exercise for those who are graduating today. I never had the opportunity to be a part of a graduating class until I went to university. I was never expected to go to university because somewhere when I was 13 or 14, probably 14, I was then expelled from the government-sponsored high school at the time called Government High School on the basis that I did not reach the standard that the school would accept as worthy of someone being able to go from the second form to the third form. I had actually repeated the second form. And in the first term of that repeat year, I got the second highest mark. But then something happened, and the standards deteriorated. I was then an exceptional young 14-year-old athlete. My father was a taxi driver who spent most of his time out of the home. My mother was a nurse who spent her time working shifts at the hospital. I say that to say probably I did not get the attentive parents would have given. When I was expelled, I had to go home to tell them. And I had to experience the disappointment of parents who had seen their child in a competitive exam pass for that high school where only 40 or so were admitted each year, only to be sent unceremoniously home. The disappointment led me to say to the House of Assembly yesterday that it was the first time I saw my father cry. Right there and then, I could have gone worse. But my parents decided to send me back to a school named after Donald Davis because he thought the young boy who passed for Government High had something in him. I remember the morning going back into Eastern Senior School, and the children in the assembly line, we had morning assembly, were saying, oh, he got put out of school. So I had to walk through a wall of shame. Even then, I could have said, I'm not going. But I went. And I had teachers who recognized that I was able, that there was something in me that told them I could make it. My mother never gave up because she knew. My father reluctantly agreed because he hoped. Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, wrote a book, and I quoted from that book, The Audacity of Hope. And I'm now speaking specifically to parents, to you, the graduates, to those who have not graduated. I want to begin with point one. It is an indictment of our country, our educational system, those of us who are in public life, when we have children going to school, and just over 50% of them would graduate. What happens to those who have not? Who cares? When ought we to have recognized that they were not going to graduate? I'm the father of an autistic child. And I say that to say that there are varying degrees of preparedness to be educated. There are varying types of attention deficit disorder. I came to make another speech, but I'm compelled now to speak extemporaneously to you. And it is for me to thank you, Mr. Higgins, for inviting me here. Because even though I have addressed commencement classes, I should tell you, of universities in the United States of America, graduating classes in the Caribbean, University, Trinidad, University of the West Indies, the Northern Caribbean University, Seventh-day Adventist University in Jamaica. This is the first commencement class I'm addressing in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And for the purposes of this speech, it has come too late. Because I have been in public life a long time. I have served as a prime minister before, therefore with the responsibility for executing policy. I have had personal experiences of being a father of a child that the country is not yet able to cope with. And there is a horrendous feeling of impotence when you are confronted by parents who are challenged in their own right, unemployed, single mothers, love their children, having to hustle to live, too many children in some instances, and cannot pay the attention to them. I'm building a picture for you. I want you to stick a pin right there, because I happen to believe in a country and a way of governing that country where people, because of a lack of means to give their children the ordinary way of life, if they're sick, to be able to assist them in their sickness. When the district education officer spoke about Greg Moss and the moral compass of testing, what you do for the young, what you do for the old, what you do for the sick, I agree with him. And I once went with the former Minister of Education to a school called Garventines, and I saw a young man with severely bowed legs. And someone told me he was waiting for the charitable Shriners movement in the United States until they could get around to having him on a list of young persons to receive surgery to have the legs corrected. And I told my minister, the devil is a liar. I believe in a country where if the parent can't afford it, the government would move in and help the parent with the child. A young lady spoke up here today. It's right from here. Very articulate, very eloquent. Preciseness in her language and the use of it. And I'm told that she is challenged in terms of health. And I asked the principal, how is she helped? And he said it's a struggle for the mother. Well, I don't know the facts. But I know that when we have children in an educational establishment, and you know that their education is being impaired by something that intervenes in their life, then our country must have the heart to be able to know that the state should move in and help that parent create an environment for that child to live and to be able to study. It must be that way. You stick a pin there and I come back to that. Let me tell you the finish of the story about me. Someone intervened in my life. Mommy, Donald Davis, teachers, and they helped me pass my BJCs, 8, 9, 10, 11 of them. Someone then said, this boy smart, send him to night school. And I went to night school. My sister then was 3 years younger, finishing high school. And I had to take GCEs at the time, sitting a desk not far away from her. With that heavy thing over my head that parents put when you know you're taking exams with your sister, who's much younger, and on the face of it much brighter. But the devil was a liar there too. Because I passed those 4 or 5 BJCs that I took, and my father had faith then, and unlike thousands of Bahamians, he was a taxi driver, but taxi drivers made money. He had the means to send me to England. He had developed the faith, and I did O-levels and A-levels in 1 year. I went on to university. I became the debating champion in this huge university in England. Met a man named Lyndon Pindling who said he wanted me to come home to look at politics. Met a man named Orville Tenquest who gave me the opportunity to work in a law firm in London. Came home, joined a big firm that a man who became prime minister was an article student at. And when he passed his articleship and became a lawyer, he persuaded me to come out and join him in a law practice. He became prime minister before me. I came prime minister after him. The audacity of hope. And I looked and looked and looked and says, one day, and I became prime minister again. That's the journey that you take. The story I tell is a story to tell you. Don't give up. Teachers, find a way, and the Minister of Education has already been directed by me to cause there to be reviews, studies, assessments, however it is done, to determine and identify those children who may have identifiable learning disabilities. And for us to know at the earliest possible time that they exist, and for us not to be caught up in what is a foolish system of allowing children to go through school where sometimes just because they can't afford glasses and couldn't see, they miss years of proper education. And I'm asking, therefore, teachers who are on the front line to help us in this regard. To look at the story of Barack Obama, he said there was a skinny kid in Hawaii who dared to dream, dared to hope. A skinny black kid in a country like the United States of America. His dream was not limited. Big dream. So to those of you who are graduating, when I took my O-levels, I was 3 years older than my sister. When I went to university, I was the age of Dr. Bernard Nottage. He and I went together, but he went to university, I went to study O and A levels. I went with Dr. David Allen at the same time, my first cousin. He went to study medicine into university. I went to study O and A levels. I never gave up. You dare to hope. You have the courage, the sense to say, I gotta make myself somebody. Parents, don't give up on your children. Don't give up. In each of them, there is something very, very bright, something there. They have to find it, and you have to help them find it. This country cannot afford mediocrity. It must find a way to point the arrow in the right direction from bottom preschools up. I'm not coming in here and condemning anything. I'm just saying, listening here today, a school where a young lady has, in athletics, I was the second Bahamian to win a medal in international competition because I had to find a way to substitute my being put out of school to show some success. And I developed just a will to succeed at something. And I was a good athlete, so I became the second medal. Tommy Robertson the first, I was the second to win a medal in international competition. And a young lady from this school has been selected to go to the junior games, Central American and Caribbean Games. Miss Hill, I think it is. But listen, I use my athletic prowess to understand that you can only be good at it if you're disciplined. And if you're disciplined at that, you could be disciplined at reading a book, disciplined at studying. I use my fact that I was a Valley Boy Junkanoo for discipline. You can only win Junkanoo competitions if you sit for months and prepare a costume. So the lessons I just took and reapplied to myself. Why, Christie, are you a good athlete and you're a bad student? Why, Christie, are you a good Junkanoo, which takes preparation, and you're a bad student? Because you never read the books. You never listened to your teacher. You never did. You never went home and say, let me just read a book. Let me just do this. Those are the things that you must do. Now, to the headmaster, let me just say this. I don't know why the shipyard has taken the time to put your track here, your sporting thing here. But I just want you to know this. We will talk with them on the basis that if they have a difficulty doing it, we will come in and do it ourselves right now. The planning for the new school that Obi Wilscombe spoke so strongly for during our campaign must commence right now, so I could build it, at least start building it next year. Because it has to happen. And once you know it has to happen, then we will make it happen. The reason why we said, and I love the song you all sang, but I believe, because that was the theme we chose in a recent election campaign. Believe in the Bahamas, believe in Bahamians, and we had this wristband saying, I believe. And that is so important. Everything I have said today is about belief in yourself. And to anyone who knows parents of children who haven't made it, I ask the rhetorical question of who's thinking about them and what will happen to them. We all have an obligation to recognize that our country has taken a violent turn. Unemployment amongst young people their age and older is now nearing 40%, 34% by the recent statistic. Things haven't gotten better. It's high. Young people who have the opportunity for higher education, if they could get into another country like the United States, they stay. Everything is going the wrong direction, and we have to reverse it. And so I just want to be able to say to parents whose children were unsuccessful, there are so many of us who took a wrong turn in life, didn't pay attention to our studies. There are students who are not in this graduating class who I'm told by the principal in their last two grades, what is that, the 10th and 11th and 12th? What's the highest grades here? 10th and 11th. Had a GPA over 2, but because of the cumulative assessment that is made, they can't graduate. I only ask this question. If I only found out after I'd matured for 2 years and had a bad experience that I had better study, I'd better read, I'd better improve myself. And I'm in a school system where for 2 years I showed that I made a dramatic improvement and a turnaround. I'm about to go into life. Now I'm leaving the school. The maturity test tells you that as he matured, he seemed to understand more and his results improved. What system ought to exist that will say to a child, you should not graduate when you have shown in the 10th and the 11th that you are a changed person and you're meeting the qualifying standard? And teachers who can exercise the judgment on that child would know he wasn't cheating. He just didn't import that from someplace. This is a maturation process which places the child in the same standard as some of those who are graduating now. Why should that child not graduate?